you a little bit more about what else we do on a holiday. And I can show you what we often would make because we often do tofurky. So let me grab that for you out of the freezer because we just so happen to have one kicking around in the event that we were going to feel like making one this weekend. We didn't, but I'm going to show you what it looks like. Okay, so I'm back, and this is the Tofurky roast that I was mentioning. So it is, this particular one is packaged probably for the holidays, I'm assuming, unless this is going to be their new packaging going forward. So this is just the roast. You can buy it as a feast as well. And if it comes in a feast, the box will be a bit bigger, and it will have a container of mushroom gravy that's vegan. It will also have, I think they're like apple dumplings as well that you cook up, or sometimes it will have a dessert like a vegan brownie. So that's the options as far as the tofurky, but if you just get the roast on its own, it's a little cheaper, and you can always make your own gravy. There are tons of recipes out there. You can use a pre-made soup mix if you don't have a lot of time or you're not familiar or comfortable making your own, or you can look at some of the recipes out there. There's lots of options. So this is the roast though, and it's from a company called Tofurky. If you've already had their sausages or any of their tempeh or lunch meats, they're all vegan. You will want to double check if you're gluten intolerant. I think they can vary, but I love the Tofurky. So let me show you what this looks like. So there is usually a plastic flap that you just peel off, and you open the box up, and this is it here. Tofurky. Okay, and very much like, I don't know if you've ever seen, I think Pillsbury sometimes has, not the ones that are in, I don't know why, that was like a little bit of extra Tofurky that was like squeezed out. You don't worry, this doesn't usually happen. That's really weird. That's fine, you just throw that in the garbage. It's frozen. These little things on the end, very similar to what I've seen from Pillsbury every now and then. But anyways, what you do is you keep this in the freezer until probably the day before you're gonna use it, and you thaw it. So you can leave it out on the counter, or you can't. If it's a really hot day, I would say defrost it overnight in your refrigerator. So it just depends on what climate you live in. And then once it's defrosted, you would just use a knife or sharp scissors to cut these off. There's a little metal grommet or something there, so just be careful when you're cutting this off, like be safe, and you don't want the knife to slip. I've done it. I'm sure one of my first Thanksgivings or something like that, I probably cut myself trying to open the Tofurky. Yep, that would be me. So if you do it, you've joined the club. Congratulations. But anyways, you just cut it open. And usually if I have trouble with the ends, they can, I don't know, every now and then I have just trouble and I feel like I end up you don't want to waste the end of your Tofurky by like cutting a huge, just try to cut it off. The other thing you can do is, and again, you have to wait until it's thawed to do this, but just take a really sharp knife, and where there's kind of like creases in the plastic, you can just take your knife and make some perforations yourself, and then you can peel it off. And I find that works the best. And then you can just peel off these ends, and then they'll just pop right off. And then as you go, you can just peel it off. So make sure you get all the plastic off before you cook this. A hack, if you forget to to thaw it, and it's frozen, and you're like, oh crap, I have to cook this in a couple of hours, what am I gonna do? No problem. What I often do is boil some water, or use your kettle, and then just put this in a bowl and pour the water over it. You might want to wait a couple minutes, just let the boiling water kind of calm down before you do that. But otherwise do that and then let it soak, I would say, for at least give it like an hour, maybe 2. That should at least allow you to remove the plastic wrapping a little easier. And then you will have to probably cook it a little longer than it says on the package, because the rest of it inside will probably still be frozen. So just keep that in mind. That's why. So number one thing to do on a holiday is remind yourself, leave a note on your fridge to thaw the Tofurky. So what else can I tell you about making a Tofurky? They're good. If you haven't had one before and you're nervous about it or you're skeptical, I will tell you this. The product isn't the problem. It's a lot of the times people don't know how to cook it. Now, if you don't like vegan sausages, like meat substitutes, then maybe you won't like it. But what I find the best way to cook it is to do your traditional style roasting pan with a lid. That's important. If you don't have a roasting pan with a lid, then make sure you cover it with some tin foil. So what you do is you take your pan and you can put a little bit of coconut oil in the bottom, just enough like to rub it down and to kind of grease it up. And then you'll want to put some onions and maybe any of your denser vegetables that are going to require longer cooking time or a higher heat. I usually put those kind of vegetables in the bottom along with any onions or garlic, anything that I want to cook really well that can stand that heat. So usually the potatoes or sweet potatoes go in that spot. If you like parsnips, that would be another good vegetable to put in the bottom. And then what I do is I take my Tofurky and I either use a fork or a knife and I stab a whole bunch of holes kind of all around it. Not tons, just like a few on each side. And what that will do is as it's cooking, the juices from the marinade that you're going to put on it will start to seep in, and the juices from the cooking vegetables will also seep in. And that's a good way to ensure that you get a Tofurky that has a little bit of extra flavor and a little bit of moisture in it. And I have found in the last couple of years when I've done that, there has been a difference in how it tastes, and people who aren't vegan are more likely to comment that they really enjoyed it as opposed to other years when I just kind of threw some veggies in and basted it. So pricking it does make a difference, just kind of like when you're cooking a baked potato. The other thing that I do is I usually add some carrots to the mix. So once you've kind of put your vegetables in the bottom with some onions, then you put that Tofurky in that you've perforated or pricked on top of that, and you kind of nestle it in so that you're going to be able to get your lid on top. And then around the Tofurky and the empty space that's left, then you can put cut up carrots. I usually kind of keep them longer, like chunks like this. So carrots, any other potatoes, things like that. And my secret that I will share with you is I will cut up, I would say at least 2 or 3 Macintosh apples, or like a Royal Gala apple, or maybe like a delicious apple. And I will cut that up and I will surround it. And sometimes I'll use like more than 2. Maybe if they're small apples, I'll use like 3 or 4. And I'll make sure that I have apple slices that go all the way around my Tofurky. It basically surrounds it. And if it's closer to Christmas or Thanksgiving in the fall, I will usually add a bunch of cranberries too, and those would be fresh cranberries. You can put frozen in as well, that's fine, because again, this is going to cook for enough time that you don't have to worry about that. And actually frozen is fine because that will inject a little bit of moisture as well from as those fruits thaw. And the other thing you'll do is you're going to baste your Tofurky. And I usually wait until my vegetables are all in it to do that. So if you remember, I mentioned to put a little bit of coconut oil on the bottom, and that's to avoid any veggies from sticking. But then once all of my veggies are in and surrounding my Tofurky, then I follow what it says on the box to do the baste. Which is, and there's usually instructions on it. Where is it? Where is it? Baste instructions. There it is. Okay. They suggest that you whisk olive oil or other vegetable oil. So I prefer coconut oil because it can handle a higher temperature, and the oil doesn't change as it gets to a higher temperature. So I use coconut oil. And then one tablespoon of soy sauce, 3 tablespoons of olive oil, and I would say 1.5 teaspoons of fresh or ground sage. I use the ground. I don't find that I need the fresh, but if you have access to it and you can do it, then that's even better. So you whisk all those things together. And the other thing that I have done in the past is I've also added a little bit of garlic or onion powder, not salt, but garlic or onion powder. That's great, as well as some black pepper. And I just grind that up and add that to the mix. And then what you do is you just drizzle this paste over top. And then what I do is I take a fork and I roll the Tofurky while it's still in the roasting pan, and then I baste the other side. So this is a way to get everything coated and but not have to take the Tofurky out or move around the vegetables. And the nice thing is that the Tofurky will absorb a lot of the flavor from this paste, but also the vegetables that you're cooking it with will also benefit from the flavor that's in that paste. And I have to say that sage really does improve the flavor as well. So definitely recommend that your first time. And then once you've made a Tofurky, you can certainly change up that recipe. I've heard of people using a little bit of lemon juice, a little bit of orange juice, and you can certainly use the low sodium soy sauce as well. It's a great way to keep your salt low. But again, it's only a couple tablespoons in total. Now, if you do find that your Tofurky, that you have to leave it in the oven a little longer, or that you just don't think that that's enough baste, or if you want to baste it more often, then what I would say is just make double the recipe for the baste so that you have enough. So you're going to put your lid on and pop that in the oven, and it does say that you're going to cook that at 350, preheated of course, 350 Fahrenheit for about 1 hour and 20 minutes. So if you have a convection oven, or you have the convection setting on, it will probably cook faster. Those of you who have a convection oven will probably have already recognized that. But if you're new to convection oven cooking, I experienced that myself, that things do cook a little faster just because of the airflow. So keep that in mind when you're cooking this. What I do is I set my timer for the full amount of time, but then I look at my clock and I make sure to come back in about a little bit less than half the amount of the full time. So if it says to cook for 1 hour and 20 minutes, I would check on it in about half an hour, pull it out and turn the Tofurky, baste it again, check on it, put it back in. And basically you'll know when it's done by 2 things. One, I keep an eye on my veggies. That usually can help tell me how overall the heat has been inside the pan. But the other thing is that when you turn the Tofurky each time, you'll start to get a sense of how cooked it is. And really you just want a little bit of a golden color. Don't worry if like every inch of it isn't slightly changing color. Really what you want is you want to cook it for at least, I would say, 40 to 45 minutes. That to me is kind of your ultimate time. Remember, if you didn't thaw it overnight and you had to use the hot water method, then I would recommend you definitely cook it for the full 1 hour and 20 minutes. And yeah, and what you'll find inside, the other thing you can expect is on the package here, it shows you, but there is some really cool stuffing that's in there, and the stuffing has wild rice in it. It's really delicious. It's a pretty light stuffing. It's not heavy on the breading, and it's really tasty. I think there's some sage in there too. The other thing you can add if you are really looking for a way to make your tofurkey look a little fancy is if you have some fresh rosemary, some sprigs of rosemary, and I put the whole sprig in, so you just wash it really well. You might even dunk it in a cup of warm or just boiled water to kind of help release the oils of the rosemary. And then what I do is I kind of stick it one on either side of the tofurkey roast. That will just kind of get the flavors of the rosemary in there, but then you're not picking pieces of rosemary out of the vegetables that are there. So that's another suggestion as well, but it does have stuffing inside. So that's kind of how you cook the tofurkey. And you don't really need to have stuffing with it if there's maybe just 2 people. I feel like the stuffing that's inside the tofurkey roast is enough. If you've got more people than 2 coming though to eat, or you want to have lots of leftovers, or you really like stuffing, then I would say you might want to look into making your own stuffing or picking up some extra stuffing that you know is vegan that you can eat, and just making some extra stuffing to go along with it. So when we have a holiday, that's what I make. It's awesome because I can do that prep pretty quickly. It takes me maybe, I don't know, 15 minutes maximum to kind of get everything ready. If you chop all the veggies up the night before, it's you don't have to do that as well on top of the prep that's needed for the tofurkey. But I would say to prep all my veggies and the fruit and things like that, maybe half an hour. And then usually what I have with it is some other kind of greens, whether it's usually a salad or a soup is what we start with while that's finishing cooking. And then usually we'll have maybe some green beans or some asparagus or some sort of roasted cauliflower. That's a really nice dish to have with this. And then the other thing you can do is, of course, have like some squash, like some butternut squash. That's really delicious with some vegan basil on it. You just basically cut them in half and cook them like that. And you can do it on the barbecue, maybe with a little foil around it, or you can do them in the oven at the same time that you've got this tofurkey going on. I've never tried cooking the tofurkey on the barbecue, so maybe that's a challenge for me to try, and I will report back to you on how that goes. So yeah, so that's usually what we make. And if you were to make a soup, I would say butternut squash soup is really good. There are a bunch of other soups that you can make. Cauliflower and broccoli would be delicious. So yeah, so those are some of the things that I do. It mimics a really nice holiday meal. So whether it's Easter time or Thanksgiving, I find the tofurkey is great. If you don't like tofurkey though, the other thing I would suggest that we've done in the past is we've made a vegan stew or a vegan chili, and then we've brought that along with a few other side dishes, or we've made arrangements with the person who's hosting to have some vegan side dishes as well, so that our main meal is vegan, and we know that we made it, and we know that we've got protein in it. And then if other people can either bring or make some vegan side dishes, like just some veggies and things like that, then we at least can kind of pull together options for a vegan meal at a family event without it being a big deal. So, and I think that's just the big thing, is just try to remember that it is a learning process, not just for you if you're learning how to kind of accommodate holidays with your vegan diet, but also for family members. And the best thing you can do is just take it one step at a time, find ways to make it easy, and then over time you can get more creative and have a little bit more fun with it. And hopefully you can get family members to give some of these things a try. And even if they don't like it, at least they'll appreciate the fact that you are making these changes for yourself, and that you do have to take a little bit more time to think about what you're going to eat, and at least they'll be more likely to remember you when they're making the plans for the holidays. So I hope that's helpful to you. And yeah, so that's what I do for the holidays.